Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
Good, Frank.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Good week?
Always great week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
so-
was a good week.
Yeah.
Weather's getting nice here. It's livable outside, you know. You
Yeah.
can get out.
It is. You know, throughout the meditations this week, this happens every so often. Not a lot. I wish it happened more, but I guess I can't wish for that. But I've been getting a lot of download information. It just stuff that's like random. Okay, I write it down. And like you said, I don't really prepare for the show other than prepare myself just to be still.
Yeah.
And, so...
But I know what you mean. You kind of, it's those moments, those aha.
Yeah, so I, thank God for technology. I put it in my phone. I have a notes aspect of my phone. So then I always have to see if I can remember.
Anything cool that you want to share to kind of start us off?
Yeah, well, as we go on, because I don't, I have to pull it out of my head because I don't have my phone on me. But yes, that
That's
doesn't
funny.
mean a whole lot.
I didn't even
right?
think about that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I need to get those lenses so I can see everything. No, because I guess what I want to touch on is last week we talked about the principle or the law of polarity, and I know I was talking to somebody about this, and empirically when we look at stuff like the world around us and come into the understanding of stuff, a lot of people look at things as oppositions, and at a certain level, like a base level of understanding life, it can seem to be, things can be like opposition, like conservatism or liberalism seem to be in opposition, but they're really not. They're just different degrees of the same thing. So at another level of understanding, as we get higher into this understanding of why we're here, or not why we're here, but how to function here more efficiently. That's really
how
what
to utilize this instrument.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has an idea to why we're here, and I think every time I ask a question, I get close to it, I just lose it. So I'm no longer asking why I'm here, but how do I function in the world more efficient every time. And, frankly, this is why I do the show. I do the show to learn more. The more I talk about it and run the ideas through my head and through you, bounce it off, and then I go back into silence, the more I start to understand. But I come to an ultimate understanding that I don't know, which leaves me from more knowing.
Well, that's the thing. What we're talking about each week here, we're trying to describe the undescribable.
Yeah, language is a very interesting thing because language, I once heard somebody recently say this, and they said, language was created so we can lie to one another or to ourselves. And I thought that was a clever way. And it was tongue-in-cheek, but yet there was something there. And so, getting back to the understanding, when you get to a certain level of these principles, especially the polarity, there are no opposites. And when I say opposite, the word opposite means opposition, fighting against. But we didn't come here to fight against. We came here to support each other. So two ends of a pole are what we call on the opposite side, but they don't oppose each other. They actually support each other. They come from a different degree of information. But each degree has its own value, which makes the other thing stand out and be worth something. So, without Alaska, how comfortable would Hawaii be? Mm-hmm. And for somebody, Alaska is comfortable, because Hawaii might be annoying. So, because I like Hawaii, and I don't necessarily, and it's this understanding, I love Hawaii, but I don't dislike Alaska.
It's just
That's
something
absurd.
different.
It's absurd, yeah.
Just something different.
It's something different. And I would never oppose it because at some point in my travels on this planet, I might be called to check it out.
Let's also point out that like and dislike are the disease of the mind.
Yeah. So it's more preference, not preference.
Yeah. But no, like that's what the give and take. I like being a conservative. I like being a liberal. It's you putting an impression that something is better than something else. And what Frank and I are saying is no you want to remain neutral.
Yeah.
There is no this is a greater than, better than. No. It's a neutrality.
Yeah, the more I study different walks of life in understanding, whether it's theology, science, mathematics, and I've always been drawn to read this book and that book, and now I understand why, because it's my excitement. But at the time when I'm reading, I don't know what the outcome is going to be for what the information is used for. But along the way, I realize right now, me reading about theology, science, philosophy, all these different things, I realize they're all speaking about the same thing. So there's a correlation there. It's just used in different languages. So a theologist might use certain type of metaphors, and a quantum physicist will use certain languages a lot of times in formulations of mathematics or what have you to explain the same thing. And if there isn't a proper translation, they'll argue. And that's when you understand there's no opposition. So if you look at, like, I mentioned this type of understanding before, but I'm going to use it differently. If you take a wheel, all right, and the hub would be the infinite source, and the infinite source is actually just suspended in the middle of it's just suspended. And what's creating the suspension is the spokes. And the spokes make it to the outside of the rim to actually support the rim. And the rim is what we call the physical world. It's the thing that hits the ground. All right? Now, this spoke and this spoke are on polar opposites, or they're poles, but they're supporting each other. But they're coming from the same thing. So directing, they're all supporting or being supported by the same thing. But if one thinks this is an opposition to me, well, in the idea of the base level of understanding, I must get rid of opposition. But it becomes absurd, because if you got rid of all the spokes on the south hemisphere of the tire would collapse. And the northern hemisphere of the tire wouldn't be worth anything. And this is what's happening. Somehow, at the base level, governments put black against white, male against female, poor against rich. And one of the reasons I can only conclude they did that is just to serve a purpose in life. So they would become the referee, the person who breaks it up and puts things to ease. So, but if there was no boxing match to be had, what would a ref do? A ref would be out of work. So they have to create this opposition in order to come in and fix it and calm it down. But what are we opposing? When we look at it, it's absurd. We're all talking about the same thing. We all want the same thing. We just speak in different languages, just like the multitudes of languages on the planet. You get to know someone that's speaking a language, they sound differently, but yet what they're getting at or wanting is the same thing same thing as you and I. But because the language barrier, we think they're opposing us, and they're not. Look at the three main religions in the West. I might have mentioned this on the last podcast. But you got Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim. They're all come from the same place. They're talking about the same God. But because they use different languages, they fight each other. Now, you don't see a Muslim going after a Buddhist or a Christian going after a Buddhist, because they'll think, they're completely out of their mind. We're talking about a different God here, which really aren't.
No.
But it's interesting that we're talking about the same God in the understanding, at the rudimentary understanding. It's the same hub that's pushing the spokes out onto the rim of life, and we're arguing over it. So at the level that Mike and I are trying to get to and remain, which we are, I might waver, and getting other people to see, you get to this whole other level, there is no opposition. There are poles, though. I'm understanding.
That which is.
Yeah. So there are things.
You're not denying there's one or the other.
Yeah, because a seesaw needs a different pole in order to go. Just for electricity to go, we know we need what we call a positive and a negative pole in order for the circulation of the current of energy to move around. You lift the negative pole off. If you have a battery in your car and you want to get rid of all negative stuff out of your life, try pulling that negative off and see what happens to the car. Nothing.
Well, and guys, this scale that Frank's referring to, it all changes simply by your perspective. And that's really what Frank and I are getting at.
Shift your perspective.
How are you looking at it? Are you looking at this as if there is something good and something bad? Are you looking at it as a like and a dislike? Because that's how the mind has been conditioned to categorize and assign meaning to things your entire life. And so Frank and I are talking about recognizing the conditioning. Wow, my thinking mind is saying, this I prefer, this I like, this is right. Who is thinking that this is right? Who is thinking that this is the only way, good or bad?
Yeah.
It's a created self. It's a created thought pattern. It's a self-created person.